Barstow Community College Superintendent Dr. Eva Bagg and Board President Paul Wilkey invite Joseph W. Brady, President of Bradco Companies and a Victor Valley College trustee, to discuss his views on economic growth and development in the high desert.
Potential growth, not just in the Barstow area, but in the high desert overall. And Mr. Brady, if you want to start out, we'd like to get your view of the growing housing market change from the Cajon Pass area up into the Victorville high desert area, and then eventually what that's going to look like for the Barstow area.
Great. Paul, first I'd like to thank you, and then Dr. Bagg. You both know how important I believe Barstow Community College is, not only to Barstow but to the high desert region. And I think that in the last couple of years with Dr. Dan becoming involved, Dr. Dan Walden, our president superintendent of Victor Valley College, and Dr. Bagg here, it's just been a great partnership. So let's talk about the big picture. People in Southern California are basically priced out of homes. People in the state of California are basically priced out of homes. So as you travel through the state, which I just did this last week, and you look at what is a median price home going to get you for $800,000. You drive through Redding, California, where I was at last Sunday looking at property. It's kind of crazy. So if we take a look at where the housing shift has really occurred, and it was a major housing shift with COVID, nobody in their wildest dreams ever thought we would see the spike of 22 to 26% annual growth in Southern California and in markets. I mean, I just saw a number yesterday at Phoenix in the last 12 months was up 26%. So for all of us that live in the high desert, we call it the Mojave River Valley, and you drive up and down the Cajon Pass, think about this. The next time you're driving through the Cajon Pass, as you get to Highway 138 and you look to the east, about 10 miles is a brand new master plan community that was originally called Rancho Los Flores. Then it was called Tapestry, and now it's been fully entitled, and it's called Silverwood. Silverwood is a development created through years of different developers entitling it. So in our industry, sometimes the third developer is the one that's the most successful. In this case, John Ohanian, through Terra Verde and his partners, have teamed up with a master plan community developer, DMB. So David Mary Boy Development. Today, they have recently broken ground. They broke ground, I believe, on February 23rd. They have a 9,633 acre site, 15,663 dwelling units. They're going to change the housing landscape for our market, which I think is going to create some additional opportunities for markets like Barstow. I believe their property values will increase, as we've seen. So the high desert region, as we know it, including Barstow, is about $360,000 plus or minus a median price, with a very low inventory. And this is a supply-demand issue. So as you come out Interstate 15 and you take a look at how housing will be, I believe that here, and we have a home builder by the name of Chad Shalls with Cornerstone Development, who finally, after all the home builders that we interviewed, John Pavlik and many other home builders that we brought out here, just said Barstow's not ready. Chad came out. Why? Because Chad was born and raised in the high desert. He can see that there's a need out here. So with the help of community leaders here in Barstow last July, we had a luncheon that I believe that you were a part of, that Barstow College was a part of. We had 20 people there, and leading real estate people here, Anne Marie Van Hammond, there's no housing here. So the housing's going to come out here. Is it going to be as big as I think? I told Chad, I think you should get into the 2,100 to 3,000 square foot. He's probably going to start somewhere around 1,400 to maybe 2,300 square feet. But then that starts. So what happens with housing, one developer comes out here and starts it. I came out here with Bob Hubbard and we built Barstow Highlands. We had 79 lots, we built 35. And then no sooner than we started arguing as partners about pricing and where we saw the future, other builders came on in. So I really do see that once Chad and Cornerstone are able to break ground, they just spent $60,000 in the last month putting a fence around the site. So they are very committed. Then it becomes a domino effect. And then I think with new housing, one of the challenges, the city manager, Willie Hopkins Jr., he's been looking all over town because his employment contract requires that he lives in Barstow. He can't find the right house. So I was just on the phone when I was out of town with somebody, and I said, well, maybe try this. But so I think that you'll see a domino effect out here. There is absolutely no product, and there's very little product within our market there. So the domino will continue to move like it did back in 2004 when people were starting to get priced out in our market. Where did they go? They finally came out here to Barstow.
Yeah.
Because it's not a very long drive.
And I think that's one thing that we see, and it's not just with home buyers. We see it in a demographic change. So, people moving up from LA area, the basin, stuff like that, some good element, some bad element, but what they're moving up here for is value. They're whatever funds, whether it's government funds or a self-sustainable fund, they're focused on where their money is been able to affect their family the best. So in terms of housing, seeing that you mentioned over 15,000 homes, correct? 15,000 dwellings.
And that's in one Barstow.
Just in the one. So Barstow has a population of somewhere in the neighborhood of 32,000. The houses that are being built in the Victorville area, just that one housing project is, would consume the entire population of Barstow. As people sell homes there and move out and look to better themselves for an economic standpoint, they could buy a home that fits their budget, a new home here in Barstow. That's what we want to focus on.
It's, Paul, when you look at housing, we all remember 2007. It was just kind of a crazy year. It was crazy by the amount of construction that was going on. There were nearly 7,000 building permits pulled in the 5 incorporated cities, not that many out here in Barstow. When the market collapsed in 2000, late 2008 and going to 9, 10, 11, the building permits were well under 1,000 within the entire market. We're running at about 25 to 27% of what we were at the peak. And I think people are a little bit more careful. I think that the problem we have today is this supply demand, and it really, I think, got exacerbated through COVID. I mean, nobody thought that people sitting at home were going to start buying homes the way they did. They didn't also think that people were going to say to their boss, if they could, if you want me to stay here, I'm going to live in Barstow and I'm going to work from my home in Barstow, and I will come to downtown Los Angeles one day a week. I was recently talking to an appraiser, and it was talking about your area out here. He said, Joe, we've seen a movement with people moving out to Newberry Springs. Why? Because you can go out to Newberry Springs and buy 5, 10, 20, 30 acres. And when you take a look at where we are today, so we're doing this on Monday, April 4th of 2022. There is no doubt, I would never have said this to either one of you a year ago, with the industrial development, some retail developers, but really the industrial development that we see occurring. The high desert as we know today, we measure 3,000 square miles. Our district is 2,000, literally 2,001 square mile, whatever. So you take your school district with your college, 475,000 people. I can look at you both in the eye today and absolutely almost guarantee you, outside of World War III or another 9/11 event, that this region will double in size in the next 25 years. There's no doubt in my mind.
So when you mentioned that to me, Joe, I was more than willing to sit down with you and glean a little bit more of your knowledge and just help us out here at the college. Dr. Bagg has some questions for you. Probably at this time we'd like to shift maybe into what we're looking as far as industry. And I know driving through your area and just our partnership with Victor Valley Community College, we know what you guys are doing as far as warehouse, avionics, stuff like that. But seeing the warehouses going up in the Victor Valley area, and you had mentioned to me, price per square foot, and stuff like that, or what it is down the hill as to what it is in Victorville. Is that something that you can share with us? And,
absolutely. So things sometimes, especially with technology, they move really quick. And I think that we think about how we used our phone a year ago and how we get information today.
Right.
So I've got a good friend by the name of Ken Shear. Ken's with a company called Covington Development. So for those that have driven down I-15 or come up I-15 near the intersection of 395, you see that big new 1,055,000 square foot building. It's called Modway. Their sign should go up here sometime this month. That was part of a 232 acre project that originally, when they went to the city 15 years ago, the city wanted that all residential. And they said to them, we really think it should be industrial. Now, this is 15 years ago when the industrial market was far less than what it is today, but still roaring. So the Inland Empire, Riverside and Riverside County, San Bernardino and Riverside County, we have today about 680 million plus or minus square feet of industrial space. LA County has 1 billion square feet. Orange County, 250 million. San Diego, about 150 million. Imperial County, a small amount. When you take into account that, we're nearly over 2 billion feet. The Inland Empire, as we know it today, is within 5 years of running out of all kinds of land to build these big million square foot boxes. So when Ken and his partner went through the entitlement process to do the 232 acres, they had an entitlement of 3.2 million feet. All of a sudden, Modway came, and they bought that land for X number of dollars. The next piece, so there's 2 more buildings going in after that. The next piece with Exeter Development, they paid X plus Y, okay? The third piece, they're so comfortable doing this, they're gonna build a spec building. So they'll build a spec million. So next to Modway will be another million plus or minus. Then there'll be a spec million square feet. And that spec building, forget the land, okay, will run them $50 million. So you imagine, you go to your local lender, hey, Dr. Bagg, would you loan me $50 million to go build a spec building in the high desert, okay? Well, a lot of the buildings that are built down below have been built on spec. So to quote a good friend of mine who is in the business, they just built a 1 million square foot building in the Ontario region. Their rent is $1.10 a square foot plus CAM plus triple net. So do the math on 1 million feet, they're going to spend 1.1 million feet. They're going to spend $1.1 million a month before they pay the property taxes. So what does that tell you? Yeah. The building that Ken will build on spec, they're underwriting at 70 cents a square foot. When I came to the high desert, the largest building was in Adelanto, and it was built by Commercial Wood Products. It was 105,000 square feet. That was in 1989. If you could get 30 cents a square foot for that building, then you hit it out of the park. That building today in Adelanto will get you over $1 a square foot. So where's the market moving? If you take a look at the 395 corridor and the area between I-15 and 395, going up 395 to where the California Aqueduct somewhat splits Victorville, Sphere, and Barstow and Asperia. I can tell you, based on tabulations and discussions, there's about 11 million square feet going through the entitlement phase right now. So that's well-known developers, Covington, Lewis, others, that are going through the entitlement to get approvals. If you go further north on Highway 395, and you skirt through the city of Victorville, because there's nothing on the west side of Victorville or the east side of Adelanto that allows for industrial development, except for some parcels that are below Southern California Logistics Airport. It's a gentleman by the name of Dave Maliski. Dave owned a 398-acre chunk of property. He just he beat out Ken Shear. We were the broker representing him on 110. So now he has 500 acres of property. He's relaying his whole site plan out to 9 1 million square foot buildings. It doesn't take into account, if you look right across the street at Southern California Logistics Airport, Dougal Egan, Brian Parno, Anita Tuckerman, their team built roughly 5 million feet of space. Spec space, and they had United Furniture, Mars Bars, and Plasti-Pack, and Rubbermaid, and those guys. They sold that to Ken Shear and his partners at Covington in November for $270 million in cash. So what does that tell you? That Covington believes that the market is really good. That project is now controlled by Prologis. Prologis is the largest developer of industrial buildings in the world. 5 times bigger than second place. The West Coast president is a guy by the name of Kim Snyder. Kim is very familiar with high desert region. He took over where Sterling's entitlement was. So Sterling had an entitlement originally of about 62 million feet of space at Southern California Logistics Airport. So let's say they have only 55 million square feet left of entitlement, okay? Cross I-15, you've got almost an 850,000 square foot building on Stoddard Wells, the first Stoddard Wells, between the freeway and where Burtek's facility is off of Abbey Lane. Mm-hmm. That's going through the entitlement. You've got a piece on the other side of the freeway that is going through the preliminary. And then if you look at what's going on in Apple Valley, near where the college has its facility out there are three major players right now, all looking at not only the acquisition, but closing escrow, going to the town, and I count about 10 million feet just in that corridor right there. So going back to simple math, let's say 11 million in Hesperia, another 9 million in Adelanto. That does not count the marijuana cultivation market that Jimmy Previty's done so well at, and he just keeps building these gorgeous buildings on out there. You go to Victorville with SCLA, and let's say that Kim Schneider only does 3 million feet a year. So over the next 5 years, he only builds 15 million feet. Then you go to Apple Valley with another 10. So what's going to happen? They're just going to keep pushing out here. There's a developer that we know. We don't know him well. We've never met personally. We believe he has a piece tied up out here in Barstow for a big user. We ironically spoke one night when Deb and I were celebrating our anniversary down in Tucson, and he was very bullish about Barstow. Why? Because the reason I've always been bullish about Barstow, you're at the crossroads. You got Interstate 40, I-15, and 58. You know, if somebody watching this has not driven from Barstow to Mojave or Kramer Junction in the last year, I tell you to get off your butt, go fill up your gas tank, no matter what it costs, and drive out there. You could land two 747s side by side on Highway 58, and that tells you that the state of California thinks something's going to happen. Mm-hmm. There's absolutely no doubt. We just drove back 58 yesterday from Bakersfield to Tehachapi, and Deb says to me, you know, I'm really surprised they haven't figured out, if they did all this widening from Barstow to the Kern County line and spent nearly $700 million, why they're not going to continue. I said, I'm sure they will. Mm-hmm. So by default, it's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what all three of us have in common. We all care about education. You care deeply about the citizens of Barstow and those that are at your community college. I care deeply about my fellow trustees and Dr. Wall and his great staff at Victor Valley. We're all in the same predicament. We can't train people quick enough for these industrial jobs. A lot of them are going to be robotic jobs. Mm-hmm. I recently had a tour with two members of our staff with probably one of the most outstanding industrial developers I've ever met. His name's Ido Benzivi. Ido has an entitlement right now of 40 million feet on the ground, 120 million feet going up in Moreno Valley next to the Skechers building. And he gave us a tour back in December of that building. It's no longer just forklifts, it's mm-hmm. technology. Mm-hmm. So the people are going to come out, they're going to be operating machinery, and they have to understand the technology. Mm-hmm. So that's what we all have to be prepared for. So if we have housing and we can encourage people to not seek public assistance, but to seek the assistance of our schools. I mean, we have plenty of ways to get them mm-hmm. into Barstow College. We have plenty of ways to get them into Victor Valley College. We need people to stop sitting at home, you know, get involved, because if we can raise the bar of living out here, what happens? The home builders come out here, the shopping center people come out here, mm-hmm. the shops and Spanish trails get built, and everybody has a great day. So. Mm-hmm.
On that subject, we're going to transition into, I want Dr. Bagg, I want you to speak to a little bit of the education movement that we're doing here at Barstow Community College, not only with our VR training that we're looking into, that we've started in mathematics, forklift training, but I think that goes right into, dovetails exactly right into what you were speaking to, but also our GIA grant qualifier students that we're working hand in hand with. It's at the Barstow Junior High, 18 to 20 young students there. We're kind of changing their mindset on what it means to be educated and how education can change their lives, and removing some of the fears, some of the boundaries of their perception of higher education. So that's where we're reaching down to. So Dr. Bagg, if you would speak to those, and then maybe highlight some of our contract education that we're doing with BNSF and stuff like that. So.
Thank you, Paul. And Joe, I'd like for you, when you kind of hear what we're describing, what you think, how we could get the word out to prospective developers, right? Because I think the perception that you've described has been a barrier for growth.
Huge.
In our area. But one of the things that Paul is talking about, and it really, I think it reflects what I'm hearing from the superintendent of schools locally here, Jeff Malin, has described a huge demographic shift of young folks coming from outside of the Barstow area. So big change, right? But one of the projects that we're involved in, and it's really indicative of an investment in our future, because we're a community college, right? We serve adults, but we're reaching into 8th graders. And it's with support from a nonprofit in our area called Growing Inland Achievement. They work with schools, government, and business. And the college won an innovation award. And we were just, listening to educators, looking at really the opportunities to capture creativity in our youth in our area. We know it exists, but there's so many factors that we hear about that get in the way of that. So we've developed a project, we call it Creative Confidence, and it's really a very hands-on opportunity for kids, and we're partnering with Garner Holt. Are you aware of Garner Holt?
I was honored to Garner and our company were given the award Top 10 Businesses in probably 1994 by the San Bernardino County Sun, and he's a rock star. He's an absolute rock star.
Definitely.
Garner, it's been a long time. You probably got more gray hair than you did last time, but he's a rock star. He is brilliant. The guy's brilliant.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
And he's created this, I think it's a nonprofit arm of his organization called Education Through Imagination. Some amazing educators. So we are partnering with them to create learning opportunities for these 8th graders. So they're coming up to the college every other week. This has been a program that's like a year-long program. And these kids who were struggling in school, not even knowing what an engineer is, now they're saying, I want to become an engineer because I understand some of the basics of it. So this is kind of a pilot project, but really for us, it's just demonstrating that we do have the talent locally. And there's resources that are required, and it's a different mindset that's required to be able to tap into those. So, those 8th graders are going to soon be on their way to high school and college, and hopefully, we're building that pipeline. Paul also mentioned that we're venturing into using virtual reality. We've had distance learning for over 20 years, very effective, but we're really trying to supplement especially our career technical education programs. And in fact, on the topic of logistics, warehousing, you mentioned coding, we're getting into virtual reality for forklift training. So it gives students the opportunity to practice in a safe environment, and we've learned it accelerates their rate of learning by four times. And it's more effective. So that's just one of the areas that we hope to be able to really keep pace with the demands in our area. But, we know logistics, cybersecurity, we've heard, is one of the fields.
Huge.
Resource management. But what are you getting the sense of for developers, why they're interested and willing to invest here? What's the vision? What are you hearing?
Part of it is land cost and cost of living and housing. So developers go where opportunity flows. In the high desert, when you really think about it in Southern California, there's only 3 areas left: the Antelope Valley, Palmdale, Lancaster, Rosamond, Mojave. Our region or Coachella. I'm a part of a group that is working with France Media and France Publications on a conference June 20th down in Redlands on exactly comparing the low desert to the high desert, and Barstow's going to be a part of that. So I think that your bigger question, I think from my standpoint, being down below and not a competitor, so I really think that we collaborate really well. You're getting the word out, and as I've said to our board, and Paul and I have had multiple conversations, and he's had to take over for the conversations with our old friend Tim. we're all in this together. So how do we get, if you're doing this really well, and we can do this over here, why should we both be doing the same thing?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's we had a gentleman work for us years ago that we ended up having to let go. It was a bad hiring decision, but somebody that taught me a valuable lesson. You can't sell a secret. So if we're not getting the word out, okay, we have a big billboard in front of our one stop on Bear Valley Road. The other day, somebody says, why don't we make it a bigger billboard? And you know what? I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Make it so big that you can't miss it. So how do we do that? How do you put something out on I-15? I mean, your market here, surprisingly. So when Paul was talking about population, it's 23,000 within your city limits. But the SMA, the statistical marketing area that we look at, so the Shops at Spanish Trails had Jones Lang LaSalle, second largest broker in the world, Eric Westhead and his team, put together a void analysis, we call it. A void analysis tells us what we're missing. So they draw the lines, and your SMA area takes in between 55 and 60,000 people. That has some fluctuation with what goes on at Fort Irwin and Marine Corps logistics base. But there's a lot more people here. So how do we get the word out? I mean, we're doing a lot more stuff social media-wise. I know that Dr. Dan can tell you some of the consultants that we're using. I mean, with the consultant you just told me, I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's that company is very well known for innovation, and I think that they would bring you 30 years of experience that the high desert region just hasn't had because our leaders just haven't been subjected to it. The developers I know that want to come up here want to be sure that we have adequate jobs. I think that one of the things that happened today while Terry and I were having lunch, and I'm going to recommend in our next board meeting, maybe to you and your board. There's a gentleman that I'm aware of very well. His name's John DeCesare, and John is the leading authority on the movement of goods throughout the world. He just recently spoke to our SIOR board last week when I was out of town, and he called me today, and back a year ago we had lunch, and he said industry has a concern about our labor force up here. And I think now's the time that maybe the two colleges collaborate, maybe bring somebody like him in. I know who he is, and I also know that the industrial developers like him a lot. So it's better to work with somebody that and say, what can we all do? I also think that the information that came from the High Desert Survey, which you and your college highly supported, gave us a gleam of some information. And now that COVID seems to hopefully be behind us, with the help of Randall Lewis, with Lewis Operating, and John O'Haney, with this master developer down in Hesperia, a lot of them want to get involved. Craig Garrett, who you had lunch with at ComAv over at CLA, Kim Schneider, they're all starting to sense they can. You can almost smell the growth coming up here. I have never, ever, ever been more bold about where I see the valley going than I do today. I'm 65. I wish I had another 65 years left in the tank, because it's not about making the money. It's really about having the fun where you can give back and see the work that you're doing. So we're laying out a foundation today that I think a lot of people will be able to take great advantage of. But I think we need to lay out a foundation that is just rock hard and that brings everybody together. I'll close. I won't close because I know you've got another question. Through the High Desert Survey and through the challenge of John O'Haney and Ken Shear and all the people that supported that endeavor to figure out what was going wrong up here, we created a list of about 2,500 shakers and movers from both your region and our region. And as soon as the time is ready, we're going to call that meeting, because it's going to be the leadership of this region, and it's a region. It's not Barstow or Apple Valley. It's a high desert region that we have got to sit down and decide, what do we want to be when we grow up? And it's not like we can spend the next 5 years talking about it. We might be able to spend the next 5 weeks figuring out what the plan is and executing it, because technology is moving these factories quick. And there, I mean, look how much stuff people buy online. And you can't build these facilities quick enough. Yeah. The Inland Empire is absorbing about 25 million feet a year right now. So just do some basic math. We will run out if they run out down below in the next, let's say, if Ito builds what he's got and he can go higher, they'll be totally built out in the next 4 years. and they'll have nowhere to go. So now all of a sudden they got to come up here. So we've got the land. Do we have the infrastructure? More important, do we have the labor? That's going to be the issue I think that we have to deal with at both of our colleges. So,
And I think that's a great point to end on. I know, I don't know if you had one more question for Mr. Brady, but one thing I wanted to highlight at this point is being now president of Barstow Community College and being a trustee for the previous 4 years, it's opened my eyes to how quickly Barstow Community College can move. We can transition, we can move. We were one of the first community colleges in the state of California to transition at the beginning of COVID to online classes. We did it in less than 30 days. And all of our faculty were on board. And it was amazing to me the way, the speed in which we got things accomplished here. And I think that's one thing that we're proud of and that you see over at Victor Valley Community College. And you were mentioning the growth of homes pushing into Victor Valley area, which means an increase in student population at Victor Valley Community College, something that Victor Valley Community College may get overwhelmed in and may not be able to grow at the rate of the population there. So Barstow Community College is someplace that can grow. We can move, we can react quickly, and with the changing environment, the learning capacity, and with our faculty on board, that's key to bringing in new classes, new studies, new developed areas that we can meet the needs of a growing economic corporation that looks to expand in Barstow. So.
let me say this, it takes leadership from the boards of trustees and your president superintendents to get by, 33 years ago when I arrived in the high desert and then became involved. There was a time these two colleges would never have ever been caught in the same room collaborating. I mean, I distinctly remember having lunch with Ted Baca at the Atlas Spurs and say, why don't we do something together?
Right.
We all have a straw in the Mojave Water Agency big bowl out here. And he said, yeah, but there was a time that this would never have happened because it was, you think about the rivalries back before you and I got here between, Barstow and Victor.
Yes.
I mean, there's just no way. I mean, there was a dividing line out here, between Wild Wash and Outlet Center Drive that you just did not kind of cross over. And now I think that the region has finally figured out, let's not poke at each other. Let's do what's best for each other because 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4, and then on and on. An old friend of mine, unfortunately, died way too early in life. Taught me that 1 + 1 = 3, and that chocolate and peanut butter is a Reese's peanut butter cup, and all kinds of great things.
Joe, we would love to hear what you can share about the Spanish Trails. I know we had a survey. You got input from folks in the Barstow area, but we would love to hear what you're able to tell us at this time.
I can tell you anything you want. There's
everything you know.
If Dr. Bagg asks you a question, she wants an answer. There's no dance around the deal. So the project was approved by the City Council unanimously on December 13th of 2013. Unfortunately, there's been, through some economic issues and some other issues, and my partner Mal Riley, who has been ill, I've taken over as a managing member of Barstow Spanish Trails. We are in the midst of working with the city to change the specific plan to allow additional uses. What are those uses? Light industrial on probably the east side of the project where the Caltrans parking lot is there. I've given a verbal, and my verbal is as good as a written contract to a national company who wants a 2.7 acre gas station there. That'll be a nice one. But behind that, so we've gone in and redone the map. We have Brad Merrill who's the consulting city engineer, and his partner Craig Johnson with the approval of the city, who's drawn a big parcel map for the east side of that, which is about 30.58 acres. We're working with Tom Oatman, who is with Caltrans, who in an earlier segment I said had to be one of the best public servants I've ever met. Caltrans is not an easy agency to deal with. Right. He said, Joe, I'm not going to retire until I have this easement issue resolved. So what happened? We came to find out, I didn't listen to Brad Merrill, don't tell him that because he'll let it go to his head, but Brad kept warning me that he felt that we had some title issues on the property. And had I tried to close escrow if I had a financial partner or a bank or however it was, it probably would not have gone through. So with his constant persistent, we reached out to Tom Oatman, and we came to find out that there was some pretty serious. So he's working directly with the Bureau of Land Management, who owned the east side of all that property, and he's working with State Lands Commission, who owned the west side. So the west side, those are already legal parcels. So there's 6.5 acres in front of Home Depot, and 13 acres. He's working. They have a call on Wednesday. He's been absolutely wonderful to deal with. There's nothing better than to get an email from somebody at Caltrans at 5:30 on a Sunday morning when he's sitting on a beach somewhere having a cup of coffee saying, "Joe, I'm still working on your deal." I'm thinking, you know what, you just don't, Tom, one of these days we've never met. I mean, I feel like he's like a long lost friend. So where are we going from there? We have a major mailing that goes out in 2 weeks to 1,000 plus international council shopping center brokers and developers that say, here's our updated 24-page package on the opportunities. We're working very close with Chris Heldreth down at the city to reduce down the development disposition agreement, it wasn't an onerous document, but it was a document that kind of said what we could do, what we couldn't do, what the city would do, what the city wouldn't do. And it was rather voluminous. We'd both spent probably $30,000 each, and now we're going to rip it up and do something called a memorandum of understanding and make it a whole lot easier. So I think what happened was when Dr. Jim Hart was your interim city manager, and with Chris Heldreth and Cody and staff and Brad, they sat back and said, this is way too onerous. Let's try to figure out something good. We have had a couple calls with two developers looking to site a grocery store down there. As I said to one of them 3 weeks ago, the parcel in front is the whole parcel. You buy the whole thing, because I want to make them bring somebody else on in. So we're moving not as fast as what I wanted, but at the same time, with the growth coming on out here, I think that the timing might be perfect. Land is like a bottle of wine. It's not a question of how good the location is. It's how good the timing is of capping that bottle and opening it up. So that's just how you have to look at it. Debbie, who you know, Debbie, who you met once, she writes the checks in our family to oversee this. She doesn't have a whole lot of patience, but she's glad to do it and knows that long term that, we not only want to be a part of Barstow's future, but we also want to leave a long-term footprint on that property for future generations. So I'm excited, and I look forward to continue to work with Mr. Hopkins and the city and their leadership, and hopefully great things will happen. I'm incredibly optimistic. I think we have great times ahead.
Great.
Yep.
Good. So